I'm Alejandro Garcia-Amaya, founder of Techstars Alumni and AnswerBite. My co-host is my brother Ricardo, fellow seasoned venture-backed tech founder, leads a number of powerful communities, including the YC Alumni. Anything you want to add to that, Richie?
Yeah, Alumni Founders started about 4 years ago, I think pre-pandemic. That's been already 4 years. 3,000 YC alumni. And yeah, we do this, and now we're doing it together with Alejandro, which is way more fun as well.
Agreed. Our community is made up of the top 1% venture-backed tech founders in the world, from YCombinator and the combination of YCombinator and Techstars. Those that are able to join us, happy to have you here. And just make sure to have your cameras on, mute on, and update your profile so that we can see your name and company. And at the end, we'll dedicate a little bit of time for Q&A for any additional questions. And in the meantime, if you do have questions while we have the conversation, feel free to DM Richie for that. So I'm going to give a little bit of background on us and on Kashish. So Kashish Gupta is the founder and co-CEO of Hightouch, the leader in data activation. He spends every day helping companies realize the full value of their data and their data teams. Kashish is a YCombinator alum who loves working on both product and go-to-market. We'll cover a number of those things. A fan of racket sports and karaoke. How good is your singing, Kashish?
No, it's not good enough for the podcast, that's for sure.
Usually people that like karaoke are fairly decent at singing.
Yeah. Or they just really hate themselves and they
Which group do you fall into?
I'm the latter, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah,
it's usually our best friends like, hey guys, what about karaoke, with like an angelic voice? You're like, nah,
yeah,
that's enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Enough karaoke.
How about another round of karaoke? And you're like, I don't want to hear you sing Michael Jackson one last time, but I'll do it. Because you're so damn good. And to finish off Kashish's background here, Kashish attended University of Pennsylvania, where he earned an MSE in robotics and a BS in economics from the Wharton School. Very cool. My middle brother, Andres, went to Wharton. What year were you in Wharton, out of curiosity, Kashish?
So I did the undergrad, 2018.
2018?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, no. My brother, compared to you, my brother's 95 years old. I was gonna say back in
class of 45.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
He also was a pilot.
Once Winston Churchill stepped down. So let's get into Hightouch. Kashish, can you share a bit about what Hightouch is and who are its customers, what problem you're helping them solve?
Sure thing. Hightouch, we help a lot of the largest B2C companies run their marketing teams. And the idea is to be able to use the data that you have in order to personalize marketing for your customers. So we run the loyalty program for PetSmart. We run all of the NBA apps and their marketing to get people to buy tickets and other peripherals. We run marketing for GameStop, Spotify, Weight Watchers, Cars.com. Really long list of large B2C brands use us to use data to supercharge their marketing.
What's a perfect example of that, using one of the companies?
Yeah, so the idea would be something like, let's say you go to a PetSmart store and you buy
Which I do. I have 2 Chihuahuas.
Oh, perfect.
Go
Yes.
on,
now you have his complete attention.
And do you have the PetSmart app and the?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So in the app, like, you have the ability to register your Chihuahuas and their names and
I have.
So there we go. So now in PetSmart CRM, they not only have Ricardo, they also have Ricardo's 2 Chihuahuas, right? And the Chihuahuas might have different toys, different food, different like things that Ricardo likes to buy for his Chihuahuas, and different birthdays. And so when it's one Chihuahua's birthday, he should get an email about that Chihuahua, and then the other Chihuahua's birthday, then he gets
which he gets and she gets.
And there we go.
And they both appreciate.
Yeah.
Wait.
And it's
go on. Sorry.
All of the marketing is personalized based on the Chihuahuas, not based on Ricardo.
That's awesome.
And it's not on your birthday, it's on based on their birthdays. And all of the pictures should look like of the breed that you have as well. And all of that personalization is powered by Hightouch. So the
That's
idea,
really cool. Before Hightouch, what were some of the options, or what were companies normally doing?
the options were very, very like painting with coarse brushes. So you could imagine that everyone that has a dog gets the same email about dogs more abstractly, or everyone that has a pet just gets an email about PetSmart rather than the specific type of pet they have. And so there was not that much personalization, which means the conversion rates were much lower on that kind of marketing. The
Okay.
idea is the more we know about the customer, the more personalized we can make the marketing that we send that customer, and the more likely they are to click and then engage and buy more things over time, like not just toys, but also food, and then also spas, and also doggy daycare, and then you become part of the ecosystem.
I'm gonna write a note here, because when we get to that section, I want to ask this, but it's related to the first customers and I'm curious to learn what their interpretation of this was
Yeah.
like. Usually when you're pitching something for the first time to a customer, they might think of something completely different than what that value proposition is. But we'll get to that. Yeah,
Awesome.
go for it.
Yeah, so Kashish, I am summer 15 YC. You are summer 19.
Yep.
When you were accepted to YC, did you approach YC with the current direction of Hightouch, or the idea kind of changed during pre-post of Hightouch, or it did not change at all?
Hightouch was actually a pivot after YC.
Okay.
When we did
Ah.
YCombinator, we were actually an AI chatbot to book your travel. So it's exactly like ChatGPT, and the whole idea was that this chatbot would book all of your business travel, your rental car, your flight, your hotel, all through Slack.
When during the program did you decide? You said after, so
After, yeah,
literally.
So we finished up YC, we raised a seed round with the travel company. Back then, like AI was like going through its first wave of being exciting back in 2018, 2019. And it got a little bit less exciting for a couple of years until ChatGPT came out recently. And so in 2020, we actually shut that business down because of COVID. And
travel,
yeah,
right.
that was a big hit.
Yep.
Okay. So what advice for founders thinking of applying to YC? Any advice that you have for them, or those that have just been accepted, having gone through the program? Are there things that you're like, oh, I wish I did this, or I wish I spent more time doing that?
So many things. Yeah. So I mean, let's start with the folks that are still applying. A lot of folks think they have to perfect their application. I don't think that's true. I think like what Y Combinator wants to see is just someone who's thought through different parts of their business, but not really perfected necessarily the wording on the application itself. So a lot of founders think that they have to have all the answers for like what to do for growth, what to do for like monetization, et cetera, et cetera. It's very reasonable to write on there, I actually don't know what to do yet. And I'm 3 weeks into my business. Here's how I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to talk to the first customers, ask them how much they can pay, and that's going to be the price. But having thought out what you're going to do rather than actually having all the answers is much more important. And so a lot of founders are like, oh, I'm too early to be able to fill this application out. And then they don't fill it out because they think that they need to have all the answers. And I think that's actually
I love that.
back.
And out of the experiences through the program, by the way, who were your partners?
That's Gustav, Dalton, and at the time, Aaron and Holly.
Oh, nice.
I think Aaron
Very
actually.
solid. I mean, all of them are solid, but those are, I guess the older you get, you don't know the new partners, but I know them.
Yeah, exactly.
I had Michael, Gary, and I forgot his name, but yeah, he's just incredible self-driving technology. No,
Sam was not in there when Sam left.
he was,
Michael
but president during my time. Awesome. So anyways, my question is, during the Y Combinator, what did you take forward, through the pivot and onwards? What type of learnings do you take from your experience through YC?
Well, I mean, I think one thing that they tell everyone is launch as soon as you possibly humanly can, which we still follow to this day. Like we're still launching new products almost like multiple times a year, at least once a year. And many times those new products are ones where we'll launch them much sooner than other companies would feel comfortable. We might have, like only 5 or 10 customers on it. It might only be like a relatively new and like untested feature, but we'll still launch it. And the whole idea is that once you launch, you get much more feedback about what to do next. So instead of trying to perfect things before you launch, perfect them after you launch, because then you can do so with as much customer feedback as possible. And YC's strategy was like, I mean, Gustav, if you work with him, he'll always tell you this. Like, if you ask him, when should I launch? He'll be like, what about end of the week? What's it going to take to launch by the end of the week? And it turns out that it's almost always possible to launch that week. Like right now, I'm having that conversation with my co-founders where we're thinking about launching something end of April. And we're like thinking, should it be end of April or early May? But it's not going to be like Q3.
Yeah.
I love that. That's really cool. Before jumping into Hightouch and the outreach and your first customers and all that, you worked at, I just want to say this because I think the name is great, Mama's Cooking.
Yeah,
Um,
it was a startup I started during college, actually.
oh, really? Oh,
And
so you were one of the founders of it.
yeah, have you heard of a company called Chef? Like the
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I love Chef. I think it died, right? Because it like
Yeah.
I don't know, the app doesn't work anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that. Maybe in certain geographies it's not active anymore. I think they're definitely
I love Chef. Oh, so please explain them Mama's Cooking.
exact same business. There's literally no difference between the two businesses. I started Mama's Cooking back in college when it was not legal to sell food to other people from your home. And so it was breaking like all the food safety laws and I had to shut the business down. But in 2018-ish, food safety laws changed and it was then legal to sell food from your home. And so that's how Chef started, pretty much the exact same business. Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking of a different one. So Chef is food from home. There was
Yep.
another application that gave you access to the recommendations of actual chefs
Oh,
from
nice.
the areas. And I love that. So like one chef from one restaurant would recommend this other place. And
Oh, the restaurants that they like. Chef would tell you the restaurants that they like.
Yes. And it probably didn't work. Amazing idea. And I got to enjoy some of that because it was spot on, right? Like you would go and they would tell you what dish specifically, right? They're like, go there and order this. And that's it. It must have been hard for them to get chefs to be active.
Yeah,
Like who the hell has time?
right.
Like especially chefs, right? Like that must have been really tough. But anyways, okay, got it. All right. So that's what you're up to. I always love everything we do in our past and our journey. There's always some form of lesson from it. Was there anything from Mama's Cooking that you took away from any of that experience? How long did that take? And
Yeah. I probably spent about 1.5 years on that business. It was just me and one other person, so we had to pretty much do everything, build the whole thing ourselves. A couple things. One is don't build before you sell. So a lot of folks think like, let's build the app first and then we'll get customers next. Back then, like one thing I learned pretty quickly is actually like building can take you a long time. Why not like operate this off of Google Form or something else? In the meantime, see if it works, see if people are interested, and then scale it via technology, right? So technology is usually better for scaling certain things rather than like actually just entry level. And so that was one. The other was finding like hacks to have critical mass. So marketplace businesses are interesting because there's both like supply side, which is people cooking meals, and buy side, which is people that are looking to buy meals. Getting both of those two things to line up every single day, 24/7 is nearly impossible, especially when you're just so what I did is I would only operate the app on Sundays. And so it was a place where on Sundays you could come. That's like the day a lot of people are eating takeout or like eating in and they want like home cooked meal for dinner. And so I would centralize all the supply and demand to Sundays, get at least 5 to 10 chefs like on the app to like cook on a Sunday night. And that way there was always supply on a Sunday. And then the chefs always found demand on a Sunday because that was the only day customers could buy. So I think it's just like these kinds of hacks to get started with a critical mass.
I love that. Awesome. Back to Hightouch.
Yep.
So you mentioned that you went through YC with for for AI travel, right? And then the minute the program finished, you raised seed, and then you switched to Hightouch. What inspired you to start a business in data activation, and like what gap in the market did you identify? How did you come across this?
Yeah, so we really listened to customers in the early days. In the beginning, we actually were trying to solve a different problem, which was just helping folks understand what their customers care about. And so what we found, and we experienced this at our like last few jobs as well, was it's almost like very few business users within a company can easily look up like which features a customer's interacted with, how often they log in, anything about the customer that they want to learn. They're kind of getting on calls with their customers blind and asking them verbally, all right, what are you using in my application? Have you finished your API consumption limits and so on? And so what we wanted to do was create a dashboard where they could just put in the customer's ID and learn everything we possibly know about the customer. And once we built something like that, we got customer feedback and they all said, hey, like, this is pretty exciting, but I don't want another dashboard. I want this information to be in Salesforce. So then we started syncing that data to Salesforce and collecting that information for them. Then they told us, actually, I don't need you to collect this information. I already have this information in my database. So why don't you just help me connect Salesforce to my existing database? And that's really what started Hightouch. The feedback that people didn't want a new dashboard. They wanted data in their existing SaaS tools. And people didn't want us to collect data for them. They already had data in something like a data warehouse, especially on the enterprise side. So larger and larger enterprises have these data teams that have done a really good job of building Customer 360 in something like a Snowflake or Databricks. And they simply just wanted us to help their business users access that data.
I love this, the simplicity. I mean, obviously, when you say it the way you did, it sounds like it's such a like
so
it
obvious.
was always there. The solution was.
We were really shocked in the early days because everyone was like, how is it possible that this doesn't exist yet? Because it's just so obvious. Having some sort of interface to take SQL databases and sync that data to SaaS tools. But it turns out like we were just at like a certain maturity in SaaS where we were finally getting to a point where central data existed. So for many, many years, different databases had different parts of your data, but no central database existed. And just in the last 5 years, this concept has started to emerge where a central database exists, which is the Snowflake or Databricks or BigQuery.
I love that. When did you, was your first customer? I always love asking about how did you find and sign your first customer, but was this, you mentioned that all of this was from feedback. So it was from a few of those evangelists that kind of believed more or less in what you guys or wanted to help and what you guys were doing. Was it one of them that you ended up signing up, or was it someone completely different?
I think it's someone completely different. There were a few people like that where they had been giving us feedback, took us in this direction of like now what we call reverse ETL. So reverse ETL being the idea of taking data out of databases and putting it back into your SaaS tools. And the folks that gave us those ideas actually became like our fourth or fifth customer. They were relatively larger companies. But that idea we took to the rest of the market and said, hey, this is what we're doing now. And other folks just kept coming to us and saying, that sounds really awesome. And one more thing that changed is in the beginning, actually, so we pitched the idea that we have today to a lot of marketing teams. And those marketing teams said, I want exactly what you're building, but go talk to my data team. My data team is going to be able to handle it. And so once we started talking to data teams at their recommendation, we found way higher product market fit than we did with marketing teams because data teams could just log in and get the thing done like next day. And so asking us, all right, how do I log in? How do I get this done? Like, let me just do this tomorrow.
So you had to convince the marketing team first of what the value of this is, but the actual users were the data team.
Basically, I mean, the marketing team would give us the business need. The data team would get it done. And then eventually we got to the point where a lot of data teams were just using us autonomously without us having to talk to their business teams.
Wow.
And their idea was, as a data team, if I can provide like insights in real time in like places like Salesforce or the marketing tools, then the marketing team's not going to have to rely on me and come to me every single time they have a question. Instead, they're going to have those insights at their fingertips while they're running their marketing campaigns.
Who's that persona, or the one or second persona that you want to speak to, introduce your product to?
So it's either someone like a head of data, or a head of marketing. And so in the PetSmart case, it's the marketing team, but the marketing team and the data team both work together and like actually like both live in Hightouch together.
That's awesome.
Um,
Yeah, go ahead, Alejandro.
No, go for it.
Now I was going to ask, when did you feel that you hit product market fit?
Early of 2021, when we had about one company like onboarding our product every day. They would
Wow.
like log in autonomously through our marketing. We would market basically this idea of reverse ETL and this idea of like SQL to SaaS. And about once a day, someone would onboard fairly autonomously, usually without asking us any questions. And we were the kinds of founders that felt like we didn't want to build an outbound sales motion that early on. We wanted to build something where you could tell the world about it, and folks that were interested would come to you and start using it more autonomously. So that's the kind of motion we had in early of 2021.
Did that mean then, Kashish, a lot of content, a ton of content and education? And were there certain content that worked best and in certain channels?
Mhm. Well, so in the early days, we didn't have a following, right? So if we were to post content, no one would read it. So we followed partnerships and we would post content on their blogs. And it'd be under our names, but it would be with much bigger companies in the data space that had much larger followings. And so partner marketing has always worked really well for us. We still do a ton of partner marketing with companies like Snowflake and Databricks. And ultimately, what we really care about is education, right? So we want to educate as many people in the world as possible that data can be used to optimize your marketing and to make your marketing better.
What questions do you ask yourself in order to see if it's the right partner?
Yeah, it's ICP. So like if we do a really good job of writing a thought-provoking article, right? And people actually read it, are they the right person? So is this company's audience the right audience to learn about this topic? And if so, then it's up to us to write good content and make sure we deliver that good content.
And what about, so like with you mentioned the partner companies, you said was it Snowflake?
Snowflake and Databricks, yep.
Yeah, so with Snowflake, because I'd also assume that when you're thinking of partner marketing, the partnership there needs to be synergy from both sides. And there also needs to be, you got to make sure that, and I don't know, maybe, but you got to make sure that they're not too close to what it is that you're doing, or does it matter? That's what I mean about like
Yeah.
checking off the box, right? Like so you mentioned like one, their audience needs to be like the same audience that that could be our customer, but what are other things?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a bunch, right? So you're right. It should be ideally a product where if customers were to use your product, it would also be benefiting them. So for us, every single one of our customers brings their own database. So they're bringing their own Snowflake or their own Databricks and running all of the computation on those products. So it's actually really beneficial for everyone at Snowflake to bring Hightouch into their customers. And right now, one big initiative in a lot of these companies is to sell to different business teams, like marketing teams. And they're not likely to write that kind of content themselves because they're mostly selling to data teams. And so they like relying on partners to educate their customer base about marketing use cases.
How long did it take you, whether it's a Snowflake or normally when you're talking about these marketing partnerships, what does that, is that a similar sales cycle that it would be for your actual customer, or does it fall like where does that take you when you're thinking of new partnerships?
Yeah. The naive part of me would say like it's just about how good of a fit it is. And how you like approach like collaborating rather than like transacting, you know? So for us, I think it worked pretty fast. Even in the early days, we were able to get connected to folks that were pretty motivated at Snowflake. And then other folks kind of followed after that. So it was mostly based on the fact that the things that we were telling the market really resonated with everyone at that company. And so they were very happy to share. So the product market fit, I think, was just like so good between the two companies that it worked. But a less naive version of me would say it depends who you know. and who you get introduced to. A lot of folks will try to go through like official channels, whereas we've always been the kind of folks that'll say, hey, look, like we want to meet the right person. What's the right path to do that? And let's just go meet that person ASAP rather than like go bottoms up.
Mm. Has your pricing model changed from the beginning, from that first customer? And any
Um,
advice to founders thinking about like their pricing strategy and all that?
yeah. Okay, so a lot of founders reach out to me for pricing advice. My advice is usually the same, which is that don't stress about it in the early days. So what we used to charge our customers was minuscule compared to what we charge our customers now. And the reason for that is because it doesn't make much sense to like monetize a ton off of your first 5 customers. If you build a repeatable business, then you'll have another 100, then another 1,000 customers afterwards. And at that point, you'll be a much more mature company. You'll have much more pricing power. It's much more interesting to make money off the next 1,000 customers than the first 100. So you'd rather market in the early days. And to do so, you want to have really happy customers and just learn from them and price at whatever they can pay. So that was always our strategy. And folks would tell us, all right, this is like 24K. How does that sound? We'd say that sounds great. And then sometimes they would say 250K. How does that sound? We'd say that also sounds great. Same product. Now, like we have a pricing model. It's usage based. It has like really clear logic and reasoning behind it. But we didn't develop this exact pricing model that we have today until we had about 400 paying customers.
Wow. Okay. Up until 400 did you decide to, and what's the current one? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah,
How does it work? Is it? Mhm.
It's based on number of syncs that you are running on our platform. So it could correspond to how many campaigns your marketing team is powering using Hightouch.
Kind of
So
like a Zapier model.
exactly.
Yep. Awesome. Yep. Simple. Like people already get it.
It's easy to understand. It's easy to toggle up and down. So if for whatever reason you need to use less of our product, you can always toggle it down and then you'll be consuming less syncs. So people like having that kind of control. And most other marketing tools charge on volume. So they charge for how many users you have, which is really painful for a lot of marketing teams because if they want to sync data for 100 million users versus 10 million users, they're going to be paying like 10x more.
Mm-hmm.
And Kashish, I know that you in your bio you emphasize your love for product and go-to-market strategy.
Yeah.
How do you strike a balance between the two in Hightouch, and what advice do you have for fellow founders like juggling these challenges?
Well, I guess like the best advice is find co-founders that you really trust. We've always survived and been able to navigate as a company because we have 3 co-founders and each of us is like quite capable of doing both product and go-to-market. And so we'll toggle up and down based on what's needed at the time. So right now, Josh, our co-founder and CTO, is going really deep on a set of new products that are getting really exciting for marketers. And we think it's absolutely going to change our space, like technology that no one's ever built before.
Well,
And
that's exciting.
last year, we all 3 were mostly spending time on go-to-market and how to like grow the customer base as fast as possible. So we all toggle up and down. And I feel like when you can trust your co-founders to just kind of take something and own it, then it allows you to take something else and own it and then multi-thread. If I had to look at like, is product development going in the right direction every single day, I don't think the company could operate.
I'm curious, as you found product market fit, as you're growing, who are your first hires? Was it dev? Was it all dev, or the outside, obviously, of the founders?
Yeah, so I mean, okay, so we are a little bit of a weird company. We had our founding engineer for like the first year or so. And then as soon as we raised a Series A, we started immediately hiring really like 8 or 9 developers, a couple marketers, and a couple salespeople. So the first early team, like the first team was really all developers, and we would kind of like, they would own product, they would own design. They kind of did everything. Our founding engineer would do marketing. Like we kind of like just like did everything together. But then very quickly we switched over to having a couple marketers and a couple salespeople because we saw a lot of that inbound demand that I was describing, where like customers were signing up once a day, and we needed to be able to talk to them and sign contracts with them and then like bring in more.
Was CS involved in that picture as well, like customer success, or is that something that you've thought about for later on, or that has also been part of the picture?
Yeah, we thought of that later on. In the beginning, they were most like we were customer success. So we would
Right.
call the customers, we would fix the bugs for them. Our opinion is that engineers are the best success people in the early days because most customer success problems are actually engineering problems that you need to change your code base for. And so
Mm.
in the early days, and actually we still have this principle, but we always made engineers talk to customers. And pretty much every single feature request would just go directly to an engineer. Customer would log on to Zoom, engineer would be there. It's just one-on-one, and they would ideally solve the problem that same day. So,
I
and
love
that's
that.
what built like so much love between our customer base and our engineering team, because customers would log on with a problem, and literally that same day they'd get an email saying, "All right, here you go, it's fixed. Like, let me know if it works."
Yeah, that's
Try it. They'd
awesome.
be like, "This is crazy. Like, you're not supposed to be able to solve my problem the same day. It's supposed to take you a quarter."
Exactly.
Uh, do you have something, Richie, or do you want me to?
Now we can go into fundraising.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so you raised 54 million. I love if you can share with us insights on that fundraising journey. Do you give yourself like how do you when you mentioned that Series A, what was that difference between the seed and the Series A, and what did you apply when going after that Series A that was very helpful? Did you set up a time frame for yourself? What was there a difference between best practices from seed to Series A, or?
So yeah, a lot of fundraising advice is company specific. So I don't like creating too many generalizations. Like if you're doing hard tech versus SaaS versus like consumer, your fundraising is just going to look very different. For example, right now, if you're raising for an AI company, it's probably going to be significantly easier for you versus if you're doing something that's not an AI, right? So
Mm,
take all of what I'm saying with a grain of salt because our fundraisers were pretty much 2020, 2021, and then 2022. So like two in like a really good fundraising market and then one in not so good fundraising market. And all were like very motivated by kind of like tailwinds and customer growth. So
mm.
they were at times where the company was just seeing like a tremendous amount of inbound customer growth. So just take those two things with a grain of
So
salt.
that's very helpful.
Yeah,
Always. And
yeah.
oh, what did you for that Series A, did you set up I've seen this before and I've done it before where you set up a certain time frame that from here on you want to raise this much. Are there um
Yeah.
any
So
sorts of what do you
yeah.
say?
Sorry. Yeah. So the reason I don't like giving general advice here is the Series A and B for us was mostly market motivated. Like folks came to us and said, "Hey, look, like we really like what you're doing and we want to start a fundraising process for you." And it
Wow,
was mostly us
beautiful.
saying like, "Hey, look, like we don't really need the money right now." But they, to their credit, they saw that we could grow much faster if we deployed more cash, and that's actually 100% correct. So at the time when we raised the Series A, we had like most of our seed round left, but we're very glad that we did raise the Series A because it allowed us to scale go-to-market and engineering much faster, and beat some of our competitors, right? So like, I think everything kind of happens for a reason. They kind of saw this opportunity that we could grow faster. We liked a lot of the investors that we met during that time, and then we decided to work together. But the thing I will say is every single time we did a fundraise, like we just believed in being very honest about what we had and what we didn't have. So it's like, look, here's the metrics. Like these are just the facts. We can't change those facts. Here's where we're going, and here's why it's different than what other people are building. And the folks that believe that and like aligned with like the way we're thinking about building business would be very interested, and the folks that didn't believe that would not be interested. But we would never chase someone who didn't like fundamentally believe in building the business the way we wanted to build a business.
Mm.
One question to just to clarify. So when you guys launched the company that went through YC, was it a pivot or you guys like a whole new company, Hightouch, afterwards with the same team or similar team, or was it a pivot from the first company and you still had those seed investors in Hightouch from the
We
previous
still
one?
had them. It was a pivot. So same team, added another co-founder, and same company.
Got it. And you still had some of the seed that you raised for the
Exactly.
previous one, you guys, that's why you guys decided, all right, let's just pivot and work on this other idea.
Yep.
And awesome. So then that's why the reason why the question is to ask, were some of the investors in the seed dramatic different from the Series A, or they decided to kind of double up and and participate in the A? What was that transition or?
Yeah, so all of our seed investors were much smaller funds. They all decided to reinvest in the Series A as well. But during the A and then the B and then post B, like we brought in much larger funds that could kind of take us to like many more stages.
Awesome. Bessemer was on your A?
Nope. So actually, they haven't invested in Hightouch. Our A was led by Amplify.
Okay, got it. Sorry, I missed it. You actually worked at Bessemer at some point. Is that what it is? Okay,
Yep.
that was my confusion. Yep.
You know, but yeah,
It usually happens. The closest people that know you are the ones that don't jump in, and you're like, "What? Like, what is this?" Now, wait. So, what? Actually, I was going to ask you about that. Did that time as working in venture, like in Bessemer Venture Partners, did that add an interesting dimension to like your journey and how you've experienced the investor side of like from the investor's perspective of from a founder when they're raising?
I mean, it teaches you a lot of patterns. So let's ignore the fundraising piece. Of course, it helps you fundraise. You understand how like fund dynamics work and like how an investor wants to hear a pitch. But even on the operating side, so you see all these patterns, right, of like businesses that are working versus not working. And you start realizing why some are working versus some are not. And you start realizing like, okay, well, maybe logo count actually matters in the early days and not just revenue. And maybe NRR is something very interesting, and we should make a pricing model that's helpful for NRR rather than like hurts our NRR. So there's all these different patterns that as a founder, you might not realize on day one. But if you've been on the investing side, you kind of like know to look for those patterns, and you know how to match those patterns to likeliness of success.
I love that. That's great. I want to pause there and see if Albert, if you have any questions or anyone here, feel free to ask. If not, I have a couple of other questions here to. So feel free. I'll give you a little bit of time if you're thinking of anything here. Do you want to jump into? Well, how about this very general question, which is just what advice would you give founders that are that are just beginning, whether it's they got their venture backing, let's say they just closed that seed round and they're about to go, or any advice that comes to mind that you wish someone you could give your younger self, let's say, if you were to go back in time?
I mean, I guess like the it's like so like it's pretty cliche, but just talk to as many customers as possible. Like a lot of folks like to be heads down building, and there is a time for that. But in the early days, if you're starting out, you're just fundraising. Like I think the best thing that you can do as a founder is talk to as many customers as possible, because the worst thing would be like working really hard for something that is not the right thing. So in the early days, you want to make sure that you're putting the company in the right direction. Like a founder's job is to make sure that the direction that we're going in is the right one, and then to go really fast in that direction. And so ideally, like there's people that you hire that are helping you go really fast and make progress, but then you keep iterating and changing like which direction you're going in. Because the only way to do that is like via customer feedback.
And I haven't and Richie, if you feel free to jump in if you want, but I have this other question regarding as teams grow and scale, and as your responsibility has to continue, you got to focus and see where it is that you want to spend your energy and resources in. What have you noticed as your team has grown? Are there certain investments you've placed to help you when it comes to culture, bringing in certain individuals? Like how do you keep the engine growing and growing at a pace where people are happy?
Also, we eventually like a few years ago, we learned how to hire executives, and we brought in like leaders that we really believe in that are kind of extensions of ourselves. And then they kind of become responsible for each of their own orgs. Like you bring in a VP of engineering, that person's primary job is to hire other engineers, and then keep them happy and productive. And like our VP of engineering, Corey, does a really good job of that. Our engineering team is over 30 people. I think it's like 36 people now. And that is awesome because I mean, we're bringing in the right people and then like organizing them, like changing the team structure over and over to make it work as your company changes. It is not an easy task, especially with remote work. But we trust him to do all of that, right? So that kind of goes off of our plate. It's not our job to maintain the culture of Hightouch singularly. It's all of our jobs together. And so kind of leadership team that can kind of do that with you rather than like rely on you entirely.
Is it fully distributed, the team?
No, so we have hubs in SF in New York. We have offices in Soma here, and then in Chelsea in New York. And then other folks live like all across the US and actually part of Europe as well.
That's
So,
great.
awesome.
Do you do quarterly like meetups or like physical places where you all go and meet or?
Yeah, we try to do twice a year. We just had ours in Austin, I think 5 weeks ago. And it was a blast. Like a lot of people met each other for the first time. And this really got to bond and get to know
That's
each other.
awesome. There's always a weird dynamic that since you meet, I've done distributed companies too. I'm on my second one over the past 10 years. And the first one also kind of halfway we were distributed as well. And it's just so funny that when you meet in person, you're like, oh my God, they're usually way taller than you thought they were or shorter or something. Like it happens all the time. It's amazing. And even with the people that you even work every day for like years, you know, every time you meet, you're like, oh, that's right. I don't have the full dimensions on Zoom. So that's always interesting. But those are super cool when you actually get together with the team every so often.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing we find is once you've met someone in person and you know how nice of a person they are, it becomes so easy to send them a Slack message and ask them questions and ask them for help on things, like 1,000 times. And so the friction of like, should I reach out? Are they going to find this annoying? Completely goes away because you know what their smile is like and the fact that they're super nice about anything you want to ask them, right? And this especially matters on the leadership level. I described to you, like we have Corey, our VP of engineering. Well, Corey might be like 2 levels above you. Unless you've met him in person, you might be like, I don't know if I should reach out to Corey about this question. But once you met him in person, you feel very comfortable because you know what kind of person he is.
Yeah.
Completely. Any last update for the community to know what you're up to? Any particular project or anything you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, well, so I mean, there is a product that we just launched a couple weeks ago called Campaign Intelligence. We used to basically help companies take their data and use it to run marketing campaigns, both ads and email campaigns. Now what we also do is we help you understand the performance of those campaigns. So we've given marketers a visual interface to be able to ask questions to the data, like which marketing campaigns are working, which types of users are converting the most, which stores are performing the best. And so if you know anyone that kind of has these questions for their data, anyone that's running large marketing teams and saying, I actually don't know what campaigns are working, I would love to meet them and love to get feedback on this new product that we've shipped. And
I love that. And that's mostly still for now B2C.
Yep. It works for both. So honestly, it could be both.
Okay.
This as a company is still going to be like the larger marketing teams, which are usually in B2C companies. But then some B2B companies also have large marketing teams.
Okay. Awesome. All right. We'll make sure to have that out there and put a link. All right. Well, Kashish, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time sharing your story with us. I love a lot of the insights that you shared and happy to be of any help as you continue growing. You got a community here and we're happy to help any way we can. Anything else to add to that, Richie?
No, thank you very much. That was awesome. I love your answers. Very sharp, very insightful. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.